I'll get started here in just a minute. I got the neighbor over there. I don't want him listening in. All right. Come on, bud, we got a lot to do. Bud. I'm glad you got your strength back. Jeez. Something real interesting happened right here, didn't it? Yes, it did. The investigation has begun. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about today is a strange one. It's something I thought about talking about last night, and I'm still thinking about it today. And that is, what is Satan? What is Satan? And then a number of other questions around that. Did God create Satan? Why would God create Satan? The why, actually, I think is pretty easy. I'm going to actually handle that first, assuming that he did. I'll get to that in another part. But Satan reminds me of like a bug zapper, a fluorescent light with a bug zapper. I used to have it. I used to put it right out here in the backyard on the patio because there's so many mosquitoes and stuff in the area. I would just turn it on at night so that all of the unpleasant bugs would be drawn to it and die. And that's what reminds me of Satan. Satan is a fake light. He's not real sunlight. He's a fake form of light. He's an imitation copy of who God is. And he draws undesired and unpleasant and just sometimes awful things to it to be destroyed. And so in the morning, once night is over and day has come, and all existence has faded away, and it's just nothing but God in heaven, that's when all of the awful things have been drawn to destruction, and things like butterflies and that kind of stuff that aren't out at night, they can fly around safely now without mosquitoes and everything else. And so that's a pretty good explanation and reason as for why God would create Satan. You could also say that he's the warden of a prison. If hell were a prison, I'm not saying I think that it is, but if it were a prison, you have a warden who's in charge of it. There are reasons in our own world that we can actually see why you would create something like that. This is why Jesus said that God does not tempt anyone. He does not test anyone. He does not tempt anyone because he doesn't test anyone because he's all-knowing. Why would you test something if you already knew the answer? This is actually how you can expose the satanic origin of the God of the Old Testament, because the God of the Old Testament is always testing people, and it literally says in different chapters, that God tested them. And well, Jesus makes it clear and says God doesn't test anybody. Oh, here comes somebody. Oh, FedEx. Or mailman, I should say. We're just not going to go anywhere until... What is that? What is that? There's something out over there. Okay, bud. So, yeah, God doesn't test anybody. He doesn't need to. He already knows everything. Why would you test somebody to see what they're going to do if you already knew the answer? This is another one of the many ways that the God of the Old Testament is not the father of Jesus. Jesus said clearly, God doesn't test anyone. And he also doesn't tempt anyone. It's Satan who does the tempting. It's Satan who does the testing. That's how you know. And all those parts of the Old Testament, when it says, God tested him, no, it was Satan, their God. The God of, like Abraham and these other characters, who tells him to go murder his own child. God would never tell him to do that. God would never tell you to murder your own child. Okay, and then God does not change his mind, meaning he wouldn't play games and tell you, oh, go murder your child. Oh, never mind, no, don't do it. I was just seeing if you'd do it, that's all. That's not God, guys. That's the devil. The father of Abraham was the devil. Do you understand why Jesus called him the children of this father of lies? He was referring to Father Abraham, who was always lying to con people out of their money, whose God told him to kill his own child. Okay? That's why he was also telling people not to call anybody their father, because you have only one father, your Father in heaven. I didn't mean to go on an Old Testament rant. I'm just making a point here. The difference between God and Satan, and that God does not test anyone. He definitely does not tempt anyone. In fact, if anything, Jesus also talks about how it would be greater to tie a millstone around your neck than to tempt any one of these little ones into sin. That tempting people into sin is a great sin. It's almost as if like you are more responsible now for the sin. The one who did the tempting, the one who created the situation in the first place. Which also reminds me of the story of Cain and Abel, where he literally pit two kids against each other to fight for his love. And he didn't like the offerings of one compared to the other, and then he started, making Cain angry towards Abel because he's fighting now for this God character's love. And he's creating this sense of jealousy and envy between the two. He's literally creating this. And this, again, God of the Old Testament was very, very slick. But it's very obvious that this was not God the Father of Jesus. Okay. But anyway, back to the subject. Why would God, holy God, why would he create or even allow for Satan? And that's assuming maybe God didn't create him, but rather it's just a byproduct of free will in this world, which is a valid theory. I don't know if I'm going to give a definitive answer about which one I believe in this recording, because this is one of those things that, unless you've set up in heaven for like hours and had God explain everything to you, no one's going to know. Did God create Satan, or was Satan just a byproduct? I'm just saying that if God created Satan, there are valid reasons why. Like I said, I put a bug zapper up out in my backyard, and I didn't think anything of it. And it's not immoral. It's just you don't want mosquitoes flying around biting you all day. So you get rid of the mosquitoes, and you create a fake light like Satan, and they're drawn to it, and they're destroyed by the voltage, and that's it. So what about the alternative? If God didn't create Satan, and Satan is just a byproduct of this existence, free will, like a world of causality that is not guided by God's desires. Hence why Jesus said to pray that God's will be done in this world as it is in heaven, implying that it's not done in this world. One of the things I thought about that might be a strange thing, this is totally a theory. This is not, I don't believe this, or it's just an idea that I've thought about at different times in my life. What if, when you get billions of human beings on a planet, it can create something that's kind of like an average of their subconscious? So, for example, if everybody is evil at heart, then you have a Satan. You have an actual power that can act, is actually like something, like I don't know how to explain it. I'm sure there's some of those new age gurus out there that can they have probably words for this too, and titles for this. But just like, okay, so like, remember when Jesus said, when two are gathered in my name, there I am? What if there's more to it than just that? What if they're literally, when people are gathered in his name, when people who belong to him are gathered, there's actually a spirit in the room as a product? Okay, no, I'm not saying it's not an analogy. It's like when a bunch of people hold hands, and then they touch a light bulb or whatever. The electricity, just the electricity in all of the bodies that are being generated will actually turn that. It's like a potato light. I remember doing this as a kid in elementary school, and it was always so cool when you first see it for the first time. You're like, wow, you mean all of our bodies generate this electricity, and that if we all hold hands, it accumulates? Wow. It was pretty cool. That's what I'm kind of talking about, but from a mental standpoint, from the mind, the psyche. Does it create Satan? Is Satan like the byproduct? Like if for example, if you were to go to Mars with just 5 people instead of 5 or 7 billion people, would Satan then not exist on Mars because there's not enough human minds, or that he exists but it's on such a small level that they would never know it? I guess one thing to disprove that theory is then, if that were true, then that would mean then that now that there are 7 billion people as opposed to say 700 million people a couple thousand years ago, that the that Satan would be 10 times more potent, 10 times stronger, 10 times more capable of doing things because there's more people. So I don't think that that's true then. Also, then why would his satanic followers all be wanting massive population reduction? Like all these globalists, all these Illuminati people. Why would they want massive population reduction if that would make the spirit of Satan weaker? So it's probably not true. I don't know, it's just a fun idea. It sounds like something like a plot from Star Trek or something. Star Trek Next Generation or some Outer Limits episode or something. That's what it sounds like, That the human psyche, if you get enough of us together, it can actually create an actual super psyche. Something that actually operates outside of it. It's a cool sci-fi idea, but anyway. No, I guess not. It could just be that there are other planes to this existence that are just so far beyond us that we don't see it, We're like little ants on a trail. And there are beings and intelligence that are so much bigger than us that are looking at us from above, like a human would look at a little ant on a trail. And the ant is completely oblivious to the human. But the human can see the ant and all the ants, and it can do things that the ant could not imagine. And even though we're in the same existence, we're not on the same level of awareness, Oh. I don't know if I want to go out there because the neighbor might be out there. He always wants to talk about nonsense. So, but we could go to the park. To the church and back. I don't know. It's hard to say. But I heard someone over at the garage. Oh, what's going on? I heard someone over at the garage though. So who is there? Toby, I think we're going to head back to the house, because I do not know. Oh, but you want to keep going, huh? I don't know if I want to go down there, though. I mean, somebody else is back at the house, and I didn't lock the door. Alright, bud, let's head on back to the house. We'll do a walk in the evening. I'll try to do one before the sun really goes down today, so we get a good sunset walk today. Yeah. It's okay, bud. Now he's like, sure that there's something over there. Come on, bud. It's okay. I stopped and looked for so long. It's kind of sad and ironic that the stories of like Cain and Abel and Adam and Eve and all, that the God of the Old Testament is actually better at being Satan than the Satan character in the story. That he's sneakier. That there's hypocrisy there, but people don't see that because they're not looking for it. Like I said, why would God test people for things if he knew everything? Why would he say, oh, I wonder, meaning implying I don't know. I wonder what's going on down there. Let me go down and check. Like in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. He didn't know what's going on, so he had to go figure it out. Come on now. We're not dealing with the consciousness behind all existence. We're not dealing with Father of Heaven, Father of Jesus, who rose Jesus from the dead, who knows all things, doesn't tempt anybody, doesn't test anybody. That's not what we're dealing with in the Old Testament. We're dealing with storytellers and their conception of who they think God is. So, it's a lot to take in. I sometimes forget, for those just tuning in, this is probably a lot to take in. That the God of the Old Testament is not the Father of Jesus? No, He's not. My favorite verse comparison, so you can see this plainly, is when Jesus is talking to the crowd, and He tells them, He says, to the crowd of parents, He says, you guys, even though you are bad people, you're sinners, even you know how to give your own kids good gifts. If your kid asks for bread, you wouldn't give him a stone, or if he asks for a fish, you wouldn't give him a snake. That's interesting, because the combination of fish and snake is literally what happened in the book of Numbers. When the Hebrews were starving and were asking for bread, and were asking for fish, basically. And it says in Numbers that the God of the Old Testament sent poisonous snakes to kill them. So they asked for a fish, God of the Old Testament gave them a snake. See? Jesus is speaking against the God of the Old Testament, the God of the Jewish people. This is why the Jewish leaders were trying to kill Him, because He was literally speaking against their God and Abraham and their ancestors. Now, I know someone's going to quote me that one verse. It's the only verse, which is questionable then, where Jesus says, how are you, when He's talking to the religious leaders, and He says, how are you going to feel when you see Abraham and everyone else in heaven, but you're not there? And so they can say, see, Jesus thinks Abraham's in heaven. There's 2 points to this. One, Jesus often used internal logic. He used their own arguments and their own way of thinking against them. And so their way of thinking is that Abraham is in heaven, so that's part of the internal logic. When you look at most of Jesus' ministry, how He speaks about how, woe to the rich, you've received your comfort now. Abraham was rich. He talked about how hard it is for a wealthy man to enter heaven. He has to give up his money. He has to give up his place in this world in order to enter heaven. You have to give up your greed to enter heaven. You have to give up your lust to enter heaven. You have to give up your murderous heart to enter heaven. You cannot go into heaven with these things. You cannot hold on for your love of sin. You cannot hold on to your money. This is why it's so hard for a wealthy man to enter heaven, because he will not let go of his money. Everybody has different issues in their life. Some people, like me, I have more the temptation to be murderously angry. That's my weakness. That's my temptation. But I have to let that go if I want to be in heaven. Other people, it's other issues. And for the wealthy, they just won't let go of their money. Abraham was wealthy. He was always lying to get money. That's just how he was. He'd always pull cons. Married to his half-sister, deceiving them with the truth, saying, tell them that we're brother and sister, so that way they won't do anything to me. And then they gave him presents because of that. They gave him money. They gave him stuff. So anyway, that's why Jesus said a thief is always coming to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's anyway. What was I talking about though before I went on the rant? The Hebrews asked for a fish. In the Old Testament, God gave them a snake. And Jesus is saying even bad people are better than that God of the Old Testament. That even these people in this crowd know how to give their kids better gifts than the God of the Old Testament. That's a very powerful thing to think about. Jesus could have chose any combination of animals. Said, ask for beef. Oh, never mind. That's unclean. I'm trying to think of another meat. Fish was the most common one. He didn't have to choose snake, though. Could have chose a wolf. I'm just trying to think of what... Anyway. Buddy, there's nothing that way. Even children are aware of this difference, and it's actually out of the mouths of babes that the truth is seen. And what I mean by that is, I've heard so many times, like in church, like, kids asking, Mommy, why is the God of the Old Testament so mean? Or Mommy, why is the God of the Old Testament so different? You hear it so many times. It's because kids know it, because they haven't been brainwashed over years yet, so that they can see it plainly, a very different personality. This is also why Jesus couldn't just talk plainly with even his own disciples. They were under it still. he said that much of what he has to say, they could not bear it, that not till the Holy Spirit comes to them that they will be able to understand. Meaning Jesus was surrounded by people who were still worshiping the devil, and they didn't know it. And he didn't just say it like that, but he left all the clues. Buddy, it's okay. Silly old doggy, bud. We're fine. There's nobody running up behind us, knock on wood. Anyway, I didn't mean to go on an Old Testament rant on this. Well, the subject was, what is Satan? That's what it started off as, is what is Satan, and why would God create Satan? Did God create Satan? So it's interesting, I started talking about the subject of Satan, and I started talking about Satan's characteristics, and what is he? He's a fake imitation of the real thing. There's sunlight, which you could say is actual God, and then there's a bug zapper, which is fake light, artificial light, a fluorescent light in the middle of the night. That's Satan. He draws evil things, hard-hearted, stiff-necked people to him to be destroyed. You understand? He serves a purpose. You gonna walk faster, bud? No. No. There's breakfast in the house. Let's see if I can get him to walk a little faster. No, he's not wanting to walk faster. I'm gonna see if he... Can you? Yeah, he can. Okay. Okay, he can, he just doesn't really want to. That's fine, he's old. Just wondering if he can, that's all. Yeah, there's someone else over by the house, and I left the door unlocked. Well, how was I supposed to know, you know? So... Anyway, video is about to come to an end. I want to continue this, though, more about the subject of, because I didn't really get into, did God create Satan, or is he a kind of a consequence of existence? I did talk about why he would, and I did get off subject and talk about Satan seen in older time periods, doing evil things to people and not being all-knowing, not being merciful, not being forgiving, you know, not turning to the other cheek, that sort of thing. That's the other thing, too. Old Testament God spent so much time killing and destroying, but never correcting or forgiving. Never once showing people how they have done wrong and guiding them into righteousness. No, it's always destruction. You messed up. Doesn't tell them how they messed up, why. It doesn't matter. You messed up, die. You messed up, die. And that's another thing that's very different from the patience that we saw with Jesus dealing with people, as opposed to God of the Old Testament, which was, nope, kill them. That's it. And that's what I mean when I say there are huge differences. You know.